Hello, and welcome to Spiritual Calisthenics. Once again, we are continuing with the Passion story on Gospel 4. At that time, they led Jesus from the house of Caiaphas to the Praetorium. The Praetorium is where Pontius Pilate is staying. And Pontius Pilate is in Jerusalem for the feast of the Passover. Normally, he would be in Caesarea, which is the major town, the major hub of the empire in the region. But because of this high feast and because the Israelites have been riotous, he is there to make sure that there is order and that they do not have another riot. They themselves did not enter the Praetorium so that they may not be defiled, but might eat the Passover. So Pilate went out and said to them, "What accusation do you bring against this man?" They answered, "If this man were not an evildoer, we would not have handed him over." This is to show their disdain again for the Roman government, but also to say that they're really trying to give Jesus the maximum death penalty. Pilate said to them, "Take him yourself and judge him by your own law." The Jews said to him, "It is not lawful for us to put any man to death." This was to fulfill the word which Jesus had spoken to show by what death he was to die when he said that the Son of Man must be lifted up. Pilate entered the Praetorium again and called Jesus and said to him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus answered, "Do you say this of your own accord, or did others say it to you about me?" Pilate answered, "Am I a Jew? Your own nation and the chief priests have handed you over to me. What have you done?" Jesus answered, "My kingship is not of this world. If my kingship were of this world, my servants would fight, that I might not be handed over to the Jews. But my kingship is not of this world." Pilate said to him, "So you are a king?" Jesus answered, "You say that I am a king. For this I was born, and for this I've come into the world, to bear witness to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth hears my voice." Pilate said to him, "What is truth?" Remember, Jesus Christ just a little bit earlier said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life." Jesus Christ is the reality, the truth of the world. So Pilate asking, "What is truth?" is a way of trying to break through this noise. After he had said this, he went out to the Jews again and told them, "I find no crime in him. But you have a custom that I should release one man for you at the Passover. Will you have me release for you the king of the Jews?" They cried out again, "Not this man, but Barabbas." Now Barabbas was a robber. Then Pilate took Jesus and scourged him. Now, scourging is where you are tied to a whipping post, and they whip you with basically a cat of nine tails, which has like either rocks, sometimes bone, tied into it so that it flays your back. And many times when someone was scourged, they would die. Pontius Pilate did this so that by seeing Jesus Christ brutally beaten, that they might relent and say, "Okay, that's a lot. That's enough." So that they might say, "Let's not kill him." So this he did to potentially save Jesus. And the soldiers plaited a crown of thorns and put it on his head, and arrayed him in a purple robe. They came up to him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews!" and struck him with their hands. Because the Roman citizens, they don't look kindly on the Jews. And so the idea that they have been given the King of the Jews is a way of making a mockery of those people. And so by putting a crown of thorns to hurt him and putting a royal robe of purple around him is mocking him. Pilate went out again and said to them, "See, I am bringing him out to you, that you may know that I find no crime in him." So Jesus came out, wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe. Pilate said to them, "Behold the man." Now, this is a very big mockery to the Jews. Pilate is doing this to show them that they have no authority, they have no power. And he is mocking them by saying, "Here's your king. Behold the man, beaten, bloody, a crown of thorns." When the chief priests and officers saw him, they cried out, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" Now, these are the same people that were saying, "Hail, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord" on Palm Sunday. Pilate said to them, "Take him yourselves and crucify him, for I find no crime in him." The Jews answered him, "We have a law, By thy law he ought to die, because he has made himself the Son of God. So they've tipped their hand as to why they're doing this, because Pilate was given him with the idea that somehow Jesus Christ is a revolutionary who is trying to overthrow the Roman government. And now he's seeing that they are doing this because Jesus Christ might be crazy and thinks that he's God. When Pilate heard these words, he was more afraid. He entered the praetorium again and said to Jesus, "Where are you from?" But Jesus gave no answer. Pilate therefore said to him, "You will not speak to me? Do you not know that I have power to release you, and power to crucify you?" Jesus answered him, "You would have no power over me, unless it had been given to you from above. Therefore he who delivered me to you has the greater sin." Upon this Pilate sought to release him. But the Jews cried out, "If you release this man, you are not Caesar's friend. Everyone who makes himself a king sets himself against Caesar." When Pilate heard these words, he brought Jesus out and sat on the judgment seat at a place called the Pavement, in Hebrew Gabbatha. Now it was the day of preparation of the Passover. It was about the 6th hour. He said to the Jews, "Behold your king." They cried out, "Away with him! Away with him! Crucify him!" Pilate said to them, "Shall I crucify your king?" The chief priests answered, "We have no king but Caesar." Then he handed him over to be crucified. So we continue on with Gospel number 5. At that time, when Judas saw that Jesus was condemned, he repented and brought back the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and the elders, saying, "I have sinned in betraying innocent blood." Now, this shows us that Judas betrayed Jesus not because he had hatred for Jesus, but because he was trying to force Jesus to take on a kingly role. And that didn't happen. They said, "What is that to us? See to it yourself." And throwing down the pieces of silver in the temple, he departed, and he went and hanged himself. But the chief priests, taking the pieces of silver, said, "It's not lawful to put them into the treasury, since they are blood money." So they took counsel, and bought with them the potter's field to bury strangers in. Therefore that field has been called the field of blood to this day. Then was fulfilled what was spoken by the prophet Jeremiah, saying, "And they took the 30 pieces of silver, the price of him on whom a price had been set by some of the sons of Israel, and they gave them the potter's field as the Lord directed me." So continuing forward, skipping over the parts that we've already gone over. So Pilate saw that he was gaining nothing, but rather that a riot was beginning. He took water and washed his hands before the crowd, saying, "I am innocent of this righteous man's blood. See to it yourselves." And all the people answered, "His blood be on us and on our children." Then he released for them Barabbas, and having scourged Jesus, delivered him to be crucified. Then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the praetorium, and they gathered the whole battalion before him, and they stripped him and put a scarlet robe upon him, and said, "Hail, King of the Jews." And so again, this is going kind of back and forth as to what we've already seen from the other scripture readings of this. When they had mocked him, they stripped him of the robe and put his own clothes on him and led him away to crucify him. And they went out and came upon a man of Simon of Cyrene, Simon by name. This man they compelled to carry his cross. Now the reason why this was necessary, that Simon of Cyrene had to carry the cross, was Jesus had just been scourged. He can't carry the cross. Now also what's important about this is that when Pontius Pilate said, "Crucify him yourselves," this is where we get the tradition that Caiaphas, remembering the story of Lot, goes to get the wood of the tree of Lot, that expands and contracts, that we talked about on the spiritual calisthenics of Stavros Proskinesios. And that is why the wood of the cross comes from the Jews and from the temple. I hope that you've enjoyed this next part of the Passion spiritual calisthenics. We will continue on with part 4.